Why is it with sciatica that it's that getting up after sitting that feels often a lot worse than when we first sat down to start with? Now, if you've had sciatica, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You might have been sitting at your desk, you might have been sitting on the couch or at the dinner table or in the car, and it's that moment you go to stand up and immediately something just doesn't feel right. You pause for a second, you might even push yourself up carefully, you feel that stiffness in your back, there might be a slight grab in the low back or glute, sometimes even a sharp pain will shoot down the leg, and you can't quite straighten up straight away. And then these first few steps, we feel this awkward, painful, unstable sensation, and then you're usually hunched over and you have to try and straighten up like a rusty old pocket knife. Now, some describe this feeling like their back locks up, others almost like their leg doesn't want to take the weight properly. But this is a pattern we see all the time with people suffering from sciatica. And one of the biggest misconceptions people have is assuming the problem must be occurring in that moment only. That's the only time there's a problem. But often the standing itself isn't the entire story. In many cases, the sitting has already been winding that system up, and it's that transition going from sitting to standing that simply exposes it. What you're experiencing is what I call the sit to stand sciatica pattern. That transition from going from sitting to standing is a really useful test. It actually shows us how the low back, the pelvis, the hips, and the nerve all respond to being held in that one position for a period of time. Now, if that transition repeatedly causes that grabbing and that shooting and that stiffness and that weakness or that difficulty straightening up, it's really worth paying attention to. So let's ask the question, what's actually happening here? Well, when you're sitting, your low back, your pelvis, the way your hips are generally held in that flex position, it's relatively still. It doesn't move very much. And that sciatic nerve, if it's already irritated, that position is going to gradually increase the irritation sensitivity throughout that system and increase the stress on the outer layers of an already swollen, irritated disc that's pressing up against the nerve. Then suddenly, you ask the body to do something completely different. You go from that flexed position where you haven't been moving and compressed to upright and loaded. And you ask the muscles to activate, the joints to move, the spine to extend, and the nerve pathway to tolerate a completely different position. Now, a simple way to think about it is this. It's the sitting that winds it up, but it's the standing that exposes the underlying problem. So then after 3 or 4 or 5 steps, the things start to settle down, things start to ease, and we feel a bit more natural again. As stiffness eases, the pain becomes more manageable, and we go from that hunched over, stuck in one position to be able to be upright. That pattern tells us something, because if the symptoms improve once you start moving, that gives us information about how the body is responding to position changes and load. So this is what you can do to get some relief during that flare-up. So before standing, try moving right to the edge of the chair rather than just going straight from that slump position to upright. Place both feet underneath you evenly and avoid twisting through the low back as you rise. Now, if you need to use your hands for support, that's absolutely okay. The goal isn't to prove how tough you are, the goal is to get moving with as little irritation as possible. Now, once you're standing, avoid snapping upright aggressively. Instead, just gradually straighten up and take a few slow, controlled steps before rushing off. This is particularly important if you've been sitting for a really long period of time. Anything more than 30 minutes is long enough for this to be a problem. So for people who struggle getting up out of the car, one simple strategy I find is turn your whole body first. Place both feet outside the vehicle and then stand up. Many people just sort of twist and stand up at the same time, which can really create an unnecessary spike in those symptoms. Another useful strategy is not waiting until symptoms become so severe that you have to change the position. If you know you're someone who struggles with sitting after, say, 30 or 40 minutes, just stand up earlier. Those periodic breaks really help stop things ramping up. Now, these strategies can often reduce the severity of the flare-ups, but it's really important to understand what they don't do. They don't necessarily explain why that pattern keeps happening, and that's where assessment becomes important. It's also worth mentioning what this pattern does not automatically mean. It doesn't automatically mean, one, that your spine is ruined, or that you need surgery. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're simply getting old. The reality is that plenty of people experience this sit to stand pattern, regardless of age. I've seen even 18-year-olds with this issue. But what matters more is understanding why it's happening. The sit to stand transition is useful because it shows us how the body handles change. It's one thing to tolerate sitting, It's another thing entirely to transition and tolerate that transition into standing and walking. That transition often reveals information we can't get any other way. But if it keeps happening week after week, month after month, the bigger question becomes this: why? Why does your body struggle so much with that transition in the first place? That's exactly what a sciatica assessment is designed to answer. So here at Aligned Chiro, we assess factors such as posture, spinal movement, nerve function, and symptom behavior. We want to understand not only where you're feeling those symptoms and when you feel those symptoms, but why they're happening. Now, where we need, we can go and get other scans like imaging such as X-rays or MRI to really help build a clearer picture as to what's going on. The goal isn't simply to help you survive the first steps. The goal is to understand what's irritating that nerve and determine the most appropriate next stage in getting you well. So if the first steps after sitting are brutal, whether they're sharp, grabbing, shooting, or traveling down the leg, don't keep guessing. If you'd like to learn more, keep an eye out for the upcoming webinar where I'm going to dive deeper into the causes of sciatica, why these movement transitions can be so challenging, and the different approaches available to help people recover. Now, if you'd like answers sooner, feel free to book a spinal assessment in with Aligned Chiro. We'll assess your posture, we'll check your spinal movement, your nerve function, the symptom behavior of that sciatica, so you can better understand what's irritating that nerve, what you need to do next. You don't have to keep bracing yourself every time you stand up from your chair. Let's find some answers.